All right. So, welcome everybody to the Psychologist podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Kyle Osborne, a psychologist and clinician. And I'm not here by myself. I'm here with my co host, my friend, my colleague, my former classmate, Dr. Jason
Good
Coleman. Go ahead and introduce yourself, good brother.
morning. Good morning. Well, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jason Coleman. As Dr. Osborne said, we're good friends from PCOM and beyond. And I'm excited to be here too. You know.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks for having you on, brother. About to do this thing. And, first and foremost, of course, for everybody tuning in and listening, the purpose of this podcast is for us to be able to get information out there, as clinicians, part of our preamble, part of our oath, part of what we do is to get information out to the community. So, by no means is this treatment of any sort. It's just two clinicians that have received extensive training. And, we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics that are happening in the world that are, different mental health ailments and trying to stomp out that stigma. We're just trying to get information out to, anybody that needs it, because information is important. And for so long, there are a host and group of people that haven't been able to get access to this information. So, hopefully this will be helpful to anyone that tunes in and listens. And we're just gonna go out and get the information out there as best possible as it could. So hopefully this will be able to help somebody live not only their best life, but their healthy one too. So go ahead and get this thing rolling, you know.
And I know, you know, I know my goal is, to kind of use my experiences, and the psychoeducation, all the information, kind of and combine it in a way, where people can understand it, perhaps in a different way. So, I'm excited, and this is a different platform for us, although we're used to talking to people and families and individuals on a, daily basis, whether it's our families or patients or kids or whoever. This is just another way. So hopefully it'll be something new, and something interesting, and it'll be a good thing.
Absolutely, very well said. So definitely, thank you everybody for tuning in on the maiden voyage of this podcast, and we'll get this started. So of course, for us to start any discussion is with the most salient thing that's happening and that we're living with, and that's the pandemic. So for you, Dr. J, like, what have you seen as far as like the mental health aspect or psychological aspect that you've seen in like with patients or with clients or even in your personal life with dealing with people, the effect of COVID that you've seen, because we're almost about what, like almost a year into this thing, right,
Yeah,
since everything, the
almost a
protocols and
year.
everything shut down. So what have you
I,
seen as far as the impact?
I think the one thing that's different about this COVID, whereas with a lot of other, whether it be medical, mental health diseases or anything, is that number one, it was a very novel thing for all of us, so all of
Mhm.
us within a year of us, a year ago, if we would have asked us about coronavirus, most of us wouldn't have known what it was. Now we all have a lot more information, whether it's wrong or whether it's right, we all got a lot more information. So that's one thing. Two, it's impacted everybody, right? So whether that's, me as a practitioner, whether it's you, whether it's somebody's family member who got sick, from on the basic level to the most, egregious. So whether you're losing family members or whether just basically you can't go out to Applebee's anymore. Not that
Yeah.
I go to Applebee's, but not, if you can't go to Applebee's anymore, you understand what I'm saying? Like those
Yeah.
basic things are impacted, and then you got lots of other aspects, but that would be the first thing that I would kind of think about. What about you? What do you see?
Nah, definitely on that same accord. It's been the disruption, right? Like you said, you can't go your typical routine of what you would normally do, like you said, on the weekend or just like throughout the day. It's totally shifted, right? Like you said, I couldn't fathom this time last year thinking about we're now going to be in an environment where we're all wearing masks, right? We have to be
Right.
within a certain distance of each other. We, you know, life, and as we know and as we practice it, was going to be completely altered, right? And so, like, I think that's something that I've seen is that a lot of people have struggled with that adjustment to the disruption in your routine, right? Because
Oh, oh yeah.
in addition to, of course, um, the stress and the fear of not knowing, and the jobs and the health element, that goes without saying. But a lot of things that I've seen, even in the work, and like just even personally and with like family members or friends, is like the disruption. Like stores aren't open, or restaurants are only at a certain capacity. And so before like retail things, all that opened up over the past winter or in the fall, like it was really like a step back where you were really affected. What you knew and what you were used to, you weren't able to do that. So now people are at a standstill, and it's like, all right, now what I do? Like, well, how am I supposed to like go forward with life and what I'm used to doing? It's like that disruption and that adjustment hit hard for a lot of people.
I think, I mean, just in thinking about this, like a lot of different ways, because I've been talking to just different audiences and people about it over the last couple of months. I think what surprised a lot of people is that, people had a lot of ways of coping that they went about every day that I don't think they necessarily were consciously aware of, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, you may, I mean, not saying that the parks are closed, but you may go to the mall, like you may go to the park, right? Or you may take your kids to an amusement park or go to a play or go to a movie. These are things that when they shut down all of a sudden and all at the same time, it really, for lack of a better term, it kind of revealed how extensive individuals' coping skills were not, right?
Right.
Um, and for unfortunately for a lot of people, a lot of their best ways of coping were taken away. Like gyms were shut down. You know what I mean? Like we live in the United States of America. We're one of the most materialistic societies, probably has ever existed.
Hmm.
And they were telling people they can't get haircuts, and beauty supplies, and hair salons was closed, clubs was closed,
Right. Right.
So these people don't just go away. These are, whether adaptive or maladaptive, is people that probably go to the club every week and they let off stress.
Hmm.
So what do all those people do? So I mean, I don't know. I know we definitely felt the impact immediately. Obviously I work in a hospital setting, but we obviously felt the impact immediately.
Right.
Both in terms of how we saw patients, like, we went from seeing each other's face to not seeing each other's face and being 6 feet away at least. Um, to just differences in scheduling and patients being scared to come in. How did it impact your workplace?
Um, with us, because this is right before I'm at the hospital I was at now. I was at another inpatient. I was with at friends, and it really highlighted like, okay, how technology advanced or how modern is your establishment, right? Like, are you able to go and do telehealth, or what are
Right,
other
right,
provisions, what advancements has your organization made? Because that's also like, if you worked in a certain organization, like, were they equipped to be able to go where you can work remotely, right? Are you still able to do and perform your job and work remotely? Or is it going to be a situation where maybe possibly layoffs are taking place? So you think of a situation like people that work in retail when this thing first happened, like, there is no remote situation, right? The only thing that took the place of it was online, but you don't need the people that work in the stores to work online. So
right,
unfortunately, same thing with restaurants. It's like you had a lot of people that were forced to, because their organizations or their fields of work wasn't included with that, right? But then you may have other industries like business, or you said working in hospitals, we was able to turn to telehealth. So for where I was working at, my organization, we didn't have the ability to work with telehealth. And so, personally speaking, it was challenging, because it was like we were working on the fly, right? It was like, really, we were working reactively with whatever protocols were coming out, and um whatever different safety measures they were kind of pushing through. So it was like we were kind of having to adapt and go along with whatever information, because like you said, there wasn't a lot of information. Nobody really knew much about this virus, and things kept changing, and it was just like, oh well, you're only going to have these symptoms if people, or and then it turned into more symptoms, and then it turned into, well, you can't get it or contract the condition or the virus if this happens, and then that changed. So now it was like we were constantly, at least where I was at, we were constantly like on the fly and having to adapt and incorporate all these new things.
I mean, I totally agree, and it really just it increased our anxiety, But again, it come back to my original point. The one thing about this virus that's been different is like everybody has been affected by it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Everybody. So I guess just since obviously we want to inform people and we want kind of want to use our knowledge to inform people. Everybody is under stress, anxiety, a significant amount. Right now. So
Hmm.
just for like whether it be families, individuals, community members, and people watching, what would be, you know, what are some ways that you're managing your stress right now? What are some suggestions that you might have for people? Just not a whole list, but just a couple suggestions you might have for people to manage their stress a little better.
For me, something that's been helpful is kind of from that, like that ACT approach, right? That acceptance commitment therapy approach, where it's like the things that I find important is it's one, accepting like, all right, we're in a pandemic, right? So these are our circumstances, and there's only a certain amount of control that I'm able to have within the situation, right? Like I can control, or I can at least lower my probability of getting infected by wearing the PPE and following whatever guidelines
Right.
and based on information we have. And then it's like, okay, once I've kind of accepted that piece, for me, it was like, okay, well, how can I still value the things or enjoy the things that I hold important in a different manner, right? So it's like I'm a big movie, TV type of person, and like to go out, to the movie. So when the movie shut down, like I'm like, damn, I'm like, man, it's summertime too, about to happen. Like I'm missing like blockbuster, like I'm expecting movies to come out. And it didn't happen just based off of. So it was like, all right, well, I guess it's gonna be more Netflix type of situation, or it's gonna
Yeah.
be, catching up on some binge watching, or maybe some old shows or other different things, or So for me, it was like, all right, well, how can I still enjoy those things, just in a manner of, albeit like just in a different kind of
So
circumstance,
like
right, or
changing
different way.
your mind frame about certain things and appreciating certain things that you have, gratitude, like gratitude and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Different things.
absolutely, and just being like, well, and it's just, you kind of have being flexible also. I think that's something that, we all have to kind of keep in mind, is that, you know, we're gonna have to, this is really gonna be a test, and testing like our way to adapt, and the way to adjust and be flexible, like you mentioned, because like you said, it's affected everybody in some form or fashion. So
Right.
it's like, all right, well, everybody's hoping that, all right, well, maybe 6 months from now it won't be this and it won't be here, but it's like, you know what, like you have to be realistic, and you have to continue to be flexible. Like this thing could be here for a while, right? We don't
Right.
know if it's ever going to get back to normal, or as they say, quote unquote normal. So it's like, okay, how can I continue to be flexible and just remain like, okay, something else might happen, whether it be through work or with family, just remaining flexible, man. How about for you?
I mean, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, obviously, we all under a lot of stress, and it's impacting people differently. But again, like a lot of the points you brought up were good. One thing I like to emphasize when I talk to families is number one, like when you talk about the stuff you can control, like limiting the TV time,
Hmm.
because the news is negative.
Yeah.
Again, you're gonna if there's important information out there, you got to remember that you're gonna get it eventually. um, or not saying that you put your head in the sand, but say you watch, if you usually watch 3 hours of news coverage, and you might want to limit that to one, right?
Hmm.
Um, what we find is when we watch these news programs over and over, they most of the time they repeat the same information, right? So,
Right.
and most of the time it's negative. So it's like we have to be conscious of the impact, those negative thoughts are going to have on us, and stress, and all of those things. Another thing, that I try to emphasize with my families and my parents is kind of like to use this time to come out of this pandemic differently, right? So I know there are one or two things that I'm doing that I wasn't doing when I first started this pandemic, right? Like new interests that I'm learning about. I've read about two new books.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
it, again, it may seem corny, but anybody who comes out of we're in a different world, we're in a different space, right? So anybody who comes out of this pandemic not changed, has wasted an opportunity, as far as I'm concerned. So whether that's, you know, doing a puzzle, whether that's, learning a language, whether that's reading a book, getting interested in a new hobby, um, and then appreciating. I guess the third thing, we don't want to give away too much on the
Right.
first
Right.
episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the third thing I would tell people is that to try to kind of value some of the things that we have already, right? That we already engage in, especially like collaborative family activities that we already engage in that we kind of neglect. So like family dinners, right?
Right.
It's a great opportunity to like process feelings with your kids, the day with your kids, cook the meal, clean up, teach them responsibility. A lot of opportunity there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grandma can't come, you can put her on Zoom, things aren't the same, but we gotta, adapt to the change a little bit. So um those will be the things I would emphasize for right now in terms of how to deal, you know, with the pandemic right now, in terms of how to manage stress. Let's just
I like what you said, man, especially about like the balance aspect of it, like really being like aware of the balance because like you said, when things shut down, when people were used to, like you said, going out, letting some steam off or, going out for a drink or wherever, to whether it be a restaurant or a bar or anything, like those were closed. What I also saw was um a lot of people drinking more, right? Like people were hitting up like the liquor stores, they were hitting up all these different things and they were like, drinking more at home. And so like just being more careful of that aspect, right? Like it's still, like you said, you can have like the Zoom parties and all the other different things, but like really having that aspect of where like you're really being conscious, like you said, either you're trying new things, and if you are still going to enjoy the things that have been helpful or that help you, decompress in the past, it's still like, all right, well, you know what, let me do it at least with balance and not overkill because either boredom's kicking in or you don't have access to whatever on the outside. So I definitely like that aspect of things. You still there, good brother?
stores, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's a good point because like if you look at all the articles in terms of alcohol and cannabis sales been off the hook in the United States since coronavirus, right?
Oh yeah.
Uh, and then there's another kind of like phenomenon. I don't want to call it phenomenon, but I guess the term for it is like togetherness syndrome or something. But it's basically just people, being in the same space for too long, and that's how it's impacting their relationships. You know what I mean? And I think that's a part of it, right? Because we go back, we talk about coping skills. You got a lot of people that they used to their children being out of their care for 7 8 hours a day, being away from their spouse for 7 8 hours a day, if not more. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're in this space, and not saying you don't care about your family, but it's you get fatigue. That's what it's called, togetherness fatigue. That's what it's
Yeah.
called. So again, I'm not justifying that, but that's why you see, because that's why you see the increase in the substance use, right? Because when people don't have the appropriate coping skills, then they're gonna do that. We also see kind of increases in certain areas with domestic violence calls, child abuse calls, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all relevant, if you ask me. You
Oh
know?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's all definitely all intertwined and connected with that. Because, like you said, when you're used to not having, you're used to having that space, right? Of not being with your kids or being away from your significant other or spouse. Now everybody's up underneath each other, and like, nah, like
Right.
it's a lot of restrictions and limitations and things people are are in each other's spaces when they're used to having like that break or used to having that 7-8 hour break
Exactly.
away from. And that's tough.
Exactly.
That's very tough. And yeah, you definitely see a lot more. The tensions are higher in addition to the stress and everything else that comes along with it. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, and it's definitely, it takes a lot of awareness for whether you're going to be able to one, adapt to it, just to kind of take a step back and realize what's happening. Because when you're in the midst of like your daily activities and your stress and the hustle and bustle, and then now you introduce that aspect, you got everybody sharing this one space when you're not used to it. And now it's like, yeah, things could definitely go left real quick.
Yeah. I mean, so to kind of segue in our other topic now, this is the question before we talk about this article.
Right.
Now, have you taken the corona vaccine? Have you taken it?
I
If you
have.
willing to,
Oh
okay, you
yeah,
have.
absolutely. I have. Yeah. Now
Okay.
for,
I have too.
yeah,
Any
yeah, for
well go ahead.
go ahead. I mean, for me, just personally speaking, like you know, I contracted the virus, sometime late last year. And
Yeah.
so for me, like it wasn't fun, bro. And I was like fortunate enough not to have like the severe symptoms. I was fortunate and blessed not to have been like hospitalized. Just like the body aches and you know, just like discomfort for like a couple of days. Other than that, I was really fortunate where I didn't have those other symptoms that a lot of people that are really struggling with. Um, and yo, man, that shit is scary.
Yeah.
Like I'm not
I
gonna
mean
hold you. Like a
listen.
couple of days went by, man, and I thought like, yo, like you knew it was different. At least from my experience, like you knew it was different than like a flu or anything else that I had ever had before, right? And I'm sitting
Right.
there like, yo, shit, I'm like, really uncomfortable with the aches and pain just off. Like I'm feeling like shit, I might die because you hear everything that in all the severe cases. Like I was feeling like this was like a Thanos snap, man. Like this, like because people are perishing, man, from this, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like scared to death for a day or two. Like, yeah, this shit is, I don't like this, man. Like it's different, bro.
And the thing is, the scary thing about it is that it impacts everybody. You don't know how it's going to impact your immune system until you already got it. So
Exactly.
it's like, I, that part of it, I get it. Now the questionable part is, the reason why I sent you the article is because obviously, I wanted to know what's your experience in your personal life, and I'll talk me too, and professionally in terms of our people. When I mean that, I'm talking about all people of color, specifically in hesitancy or either that or being hesitant or embracing the vaccine. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, like I've been very surprised because it's been a lot of people that I thought would be willing to take it. That's just like nah, I ain't with it. And me, like the thing about me, and this is partly my downfall sometimes, is I always ask a follow-up question like why, you know what I mean? And some of the reasons that people give me are kind of strange, you know. Um, so I just wanted to know what your experience is, and just how you feel about it.
I mean, for me, again, it was one, just kind of taking in that consideration, like my personal experience, and two, um, I mean, especially with patients and even with family and friends that I've talked to and asked, like, hey, if they, were considering it or didn't want to get or they did. I mean, this is something that we've seen in our communities for years. Even this is prior to
Right.
COVID even happening. Is that there's that distrust of medicine or even particular, especially if something is coming from the government. Um,
Right.
Absolutely. And this is because of generations of mistrust. You got the Tuskegee, study. You got all these. We have, well, we all know about the studies where,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, our people haven't been getting the best medicine or or the same number of, life saving medical interventions. Just because of the color of their skin and their SES, there are studies that show that, unfortunately, in various different medical settings where they weren't offering those same interventions to our people, but they were giving it to, white people. So,
Very
so
true. Very true.
I understand, where that mistrust is coming from, because again, it's been here prior to to COVID. So I get the mistrust because of what's taking place ahead of time. For me, I had to kind of take a look at it like, okay, like what's the information that's out there, right? Like for me, it's always a situation of let me see the information that I can get from a reputable source,
Right.
and like how I can incorporate like before I do go ahead, because I get the side effects, and every vaccine is going to have a side effect, right? There's no way you're not going to
Hmm.
get injected with any foreign antibodies, and you're not going to have some form of a reaction to it. And it varies from individual to individual. But my thing was more like, okay, well, and once I got the information that I was comfortable with, and I was like, well, even looking at it like after contracting the virus, it was still a lot of not like solid information as how long the antibodies will be in your body and so on and so forth. And so I had to look at it like, well, I don't want to feel like this again. Right. Like, and that was with me even doing, all the PPE and the protocols and so on and so forth. And I was still able to, and I still contracted it because you don't know, right? It's just there's so many different factors. So I looked at it like, well, how for me, what's the best chance for me to one keep myself safe and healthy, and then also because I work inpatient in a hospital, and we work in like with people, so we're not no longer doing like the staggered schedule or telehealth. So I'm working with people, so I also have to keep in mind how can I keep not only myself safe and healthy, but how can I keep the people that I'm working with, even though of course we're donning and we have all the PPE gear, but it's like I need to keep them safe. So once I kind of was able to get that information, then I was just like, all right, well, I feel like I'm comfortable enough to deal with that. And I'd rather feel more protected against this thing than anything else. You know what I mean? And so that's what, at least for me personally, and some of the things that I've gotten. But the mistrust is what I've gotten from a lot of patients, and even people like, I ain't doing that shit, man. Did this and
Now,
that. You know what I mean?
now the mistrust I understand, right? Tuskegee experiment was real, right? But see, I think the problem is people conflate things that aren't necessarily equal all the time. I'm not talking about you, right? But there's
Right.
mistrust. Mistrust is a historical thing. So we could talk about all the historical things that the medical system psychologically has been done against people of color. We could spend 3 hours talking about it, right?
Right.
Then
Right.
there's misinformation, right? That I'm
Hmm.
gonna have a chip in me if I take this shot, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a chip put in me, right? That the virus that the vaccine is gonna give me COVID-19, right? Most
Right.
people, this is why I have an issue, because you're talking about mistrust, which is based off a knowledge base a lot of people have, and I can dig it. But when I hear from people is misinformation. You understand what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so my what I urge people to do is, do your own research, because again, I call that the Donald Trump effect, right?
Hmm.
Because the minute last March when Dr. Fauci said it's two people with coronavirus, Donald Trump was on the other side saying, no, it ain't real, right?
Right.
So I'm not saying that those people, I don't want to bring politics into it too much. And I don't want to say that those people are Trump supporters. But what I'm saying is they've been impacted, okay, by conflating conspiracy theories and science. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
misinformation is different. Like I get it. Like people are wary, but I see a lot of people. I see an absence of information that a lot of people have, and that's why
Yeah.
I brought up the reasons that they give me. Because when I ask people the reasons why they're not taking it, and of course everybody has the right to make their own decision, right? So people have a right to be not protected, you know.
True.
And they got to suffer the consequences, God forbid, if something happens. But my point is, I don't think people have the information when they're making the decision. Not all of them, it's per se.
Hmm.
Not saying everybody, but not all of them. So that's why I just wanted to ask you, because I was just been surprised at some of the reasons that people have been giving me. But it's not uncommon. So it is what it is.
Oh yeah, man, you'll hear some outlandish reasons, and these people are very serious. Like you said, the chip. People say like like it's really it's mind blowing.
Right.
This the stuff that you hear, and in addition to, like you said, the misinformation. Of course, it's also that access to it, right? The access to the vaccine. And I looked at it for me like, well, like my employer is presenting it, right? It's offering it. So for me,
Right.
it's like, all right, once I did my research, I'm like, okay, well, you know what, I'm making an informed decision. So that's something that I've offered to some of my patients that I work with, or even other people, like my personal life, is that, like you said, is one, get the information. Like I'll never
Right.
impose my decision on anyone else. Like I see people on social media, and like other physicians and folks and nurses, and showing the cards, and they're which is great. That's cool. For me, it's like I'm never going to impose that. I'll get information out to you, and I advise everybody to get information from a reputable source, right? Get your
Right.
information from a reputable source, and then make an informed decision, right? Do your due diligence, and think about your own health, right? You think about people you live with, all these other different things, right? Make an informed decision. And like you said, whether you do or you don't, I mean, that's entirely up to you, but at least give yourself that consideration, and kind of do your due diligence, and get the
I mean,
information out there.
the re- the reason why I'm reiterating that is because, listen, like people are putting themselves in danger, right? We're talking about a matter of life and death, and I'm saying make your own decision. Um, but we're talking about a matter of life and death, right? So I'll give you a prime example. When I talk to people, one of the number one reasons they'll give me is, well, I don't know what's in it. I don't know what's in it. That's what they'll tell me, right?
Yeah.
And again, now this is people talking out of both sides of their mouth, because 99% of those people, or I'm gonna just say 90, let me say 90,
Yeah.
if they have children or if they don't have children, they'll take their children down to the pediatrician, right?
Right.
And get one shot, two shots, three shots. You think they know what's in a flu shot? You think they
Yeah.
know what's in any of those shots? And I'm not saying it to be, facetious or to be a jerk, but I mean, like, we're talking out of both sides of our mouths, right? And
Oh
we
yeah.
don't understand, we not understanding the effect that conflating conspiracy theories and science is having on us. You
Yeah.
understand? So, but it sounds funny, right? But these are the same people that'll take their baby down to the pediatrician and be in the other room while the pediatrician is pow, pow, pow.
Right.
Just sign the immunization card, right? You think
Mm-hmm.
those vaccines don't get updated? Yeah, they get updated. You know the same amount about what's in that vaccine as you know about the coronavirus vaccine, and it's been through the same amount of clinical trials, right? But so that's why I said there's historical facts, yeah. You know what I mean? Tuskegee experiment happened, but then there's an absence of information, and people like to use emotional reasoning, and it sounds good that the government, they gonna put a chip in it and this and that, and so a lie makes it around the world, quicker than before the truth makes it down the block. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
the only point I'm making. It's like in all these other aspects, we trust the professionals, right? Except this one.
Oh yeah. It's a lot of contradiction, man. Like I'll even do you one even better. Like I've had people that I know that that smoke or whatever. And they'll say the same thing. Like I don't know what they putting in that vaccine. I'm like, dude, you even know what's in that blunt that you smoking? Like, come on, bro. Like, let's
Yeah,
like you out here like
I
people
mean,
that I know that what I mean, that do
it's the
illicit
same the
stuff.
same reasoning, right? You
Yeah,
use the same reasoning, and I mean, it don't
exactly.
make no,
Right. Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
make sense, but
contradiction.
right,
Man. So it's yeah, it's mind blowing, and it's willful ignorance. It's a lot of those different things, unfortunately. And you got to really step back and like listen. Like our communities are the ones, like you said, between life and death. Our communities are the ones being vastly affected by this. Right? You look up
yeah,
like the health belief model, and you're looking at like, okay, someone's susceptibility or their belief on that they'll acquire this condition, or what the severity will be. And I just think of that, and I just like, there's a reason why, like, it's happening, within this. And like you said, part of it is mistrust, but then it's also that that misinformation, and then you're making a decision based off of these emotions and just like these just different misconceptions and conspiracy theories,
Right.
and it's harmful. It's like it's killing our community.
And unfortunately, your misinformation, which can result in going to parties, not wearing masks, blah blah
Oh
blah blah
yeah.
blah blah, blah is killing people,
Oh
right?
man.
So that's the problem, you know. But you know how people are when they get dug in on something, right? So so what I found, you find yourself in a position where if you tell somebody give somebody the facts, then you already know what happens when you tell somebody the facts.
Right.
They're gonna they're gonna respond with a conspiracy theory or just tell you it's a lie. So this is the point we're at. But it is what it is. Everybody has to make their personal decision, but it's issues that need to be discussed, right? Because people are suffering as a result. So
Mhm. Yeah. I've even seen where people will be like, well, I want to get, I'm not gonna get the vaccine, but I want my parents or I want my grandma to get it. I'm just like, well, or and I emphasize to them like, you're important too, right? Like,
yeah,
you're important. You want to save their life. Like, well, it's on the same way on the other side. They want to see you healthy. They want to see you do well. So, I would just kind of throw that little caveat out there when I hear the, well, my so and so member is gonna get it, but I'm good because I don't know what's in it. I'm so and so. Like, well, I don't get that thinking. Like it's
I
you know
mean,
it's
I
tough,
don't get.
man. But the best that we're able to do, I think, is like you said, is get the information out there. Try to emphasize the importance of it. And like you said, whatever you do with the information you get, whether you want to throw a conspiracy theory on there, or you actually maybe want to, there might be some growth or some facilitation of like some forward thinking, and maybe it's on you. But the information is out there. So I'm hopefully, with the more information that is getting put out there and information from people that look like us, hopefully that can be that mechanism of change where people can, start to get on it and start, getting
Because
themselves healthy.
we got to start doing, and I'm not saying there's a lot of us that are, but more of us we got to start doing more research. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine to be informed by other people about, what's going on locally, nationally, whatever, but we got to start using facts and knowledge to inform our opinions,
Yeah.
you know, and again, and I'm talking about critical thinking, because I know the first time you say that, then people try to act like you're a slave to a book, but so we're talking about critical thinking, of course,
Right.
but there's a difference. You want your thinking and your thoughts and your arguments to be, the foundation to be facts. You know what I mean? Not necessarily how you feel. So, we got to start moving more towards that, because, again, when we're debating about like what color we gonna paint our house, like that's cool, But when when we're deciding like policy for a pandemic, you know, that matters. It matters a little bit more, a lot more. You know what I mean? So um, we got to start looking at facts and reading articles and doing that, a lot of that, more of that ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of listening to other people. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, so we gotta switch gears to this other article you sent me about Clubhouse. All right,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, so I have to be honest. Like, for me, I didn't have that much information or knowledge about Clubhouse. I read
Mhm.
about it and heard about it, but I never got an opportunity to actually like participate in the app itself and what it was about. For you, for what stuck out to you, like what drew you into this, and give me your thoughts about the
I
article.
mean, obviously, it's another. I'm not too familiar with it, but it's another social media app. Provides, I guess, rooms for people to kind of communicate, chat, and blah blah blah. But the reason why I kind of sent it to you is because I guess there was a psychologist or a mental health professional
Mm-hmm.
that, not saying that they had a problem. I don't know if it was a male or female, if they had a problem with Clubhouse per se, but they were kind of pointing out, I guess, some of the challenges with some of the mental health themed rooms.
Right.
I guess once saying that some of the issues that people were talking about weren't being moderated by like mental health professionals. And I
Mhm.
guess the feeling was that things could be said, you know, and I guess could trigger people. And then, you know, once they get off the app, you know, where does that leave them in terms of their emotional state and all of that
Right.
type of stuff? You know,
Mhm.
I just thought it was an interesting article. I don't really have a position either way because, you know, again, like what we do is voluntary. You know, mental health treatment is voluntary. So
Right.
I can tell you what I think. Like, do I think that individuals should be, you know, soliciting information about like depressive and suicidal thoughts and those type of things from other people or just people that love them? No. You know what I mean? I think that could be a very dangerous situation, you know?
Mhm.
Um, but the reality of the fact is there are thousands of people who will never go to a therapy session and they're still going to experience those feelings and they're only going to talk to their family.
Right.
So Clubhouse is no different than that. Even though whether it's strangers or not, it's no different than that because if somebody wants to sit on a bus and talk to a neighbor about their innermost thoughts and then not come talk to Dr. J about it, you know, it's a free country. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we can point out the dangers, and I don't think it's irresponsible to point them out, you know. But there's no difference between that and Facebook and Instagram and all Reddit, any platform where you can freely post your opinion or communicate with another person, you know. So you know, I just thought it was
Yeah.
an interesting article. What you think?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I like the aspect of there being a place or like the sense of community that it's trying to foster, you know, where okay, maybe you may have we still because of the mental health stigma that, you know, we go up against every day is that you have a huge population of people that aren't willing to go, like you said, see a therapist, you know, just due to whatever different stigma or misconceptions and things that are involved. And so it's good that there is a place where but yeah, like people are comfortable sharing, okay, maybe some issues or some different, you know, challenges they're having. So I do like that aspect of it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is dangerous if it is a situation where you have, I guess, a chat room or a room or whatever you want to call it, and if they're like, I think something in the article was like, let's talk about trauma, and I'm like, all right, well, yeah, that could be very dangerous if it's a situation where we're gonna go into some race and we're just gonna, you know, vomit every, you know, traumatic experience that we've experienced, and then there, you know, after that it's over, right? Because we all know how dangerous that is. Hell, we don't even do a one session group on trauma, you know what I mean? Like, you know,
Right.
and I know when we're treating someone's trauma, like this is a series and an ongoing process. So I think, like you said, anything type of situation where, yeah, that could definitely be harmful. So you know, they talked about, I think I was reading at the end of it where they're trying to put some disclaimers where I felt like, well, I mean, if that was the case, that should have been done. I don't know who's in charge of the app or whatever, you know, and it seemed like, all right, it's just like rooms where they got like different like little TED Talks and different things going on. So I like the aspect, like, yeah, if you're pushing information and resources, yeah, that's a good thing. But even I still feel like outside of like telehealth, like where you're actually having like a session with like a clinician or a therapist or whoever, I feel like that can sometimes kind of get dangerous because you're going to just open up anything where it's like, all right, everybody, let's talk about, you know, our past traumatic experiences or when we had suicidal thoughts and things like that. Because I feel like then that's a recipe for disaster because it's like now you're putting so many thoughts and so many different things and it's just going to continue to escalate, right? There's no way you're going to be able to bring that down or be able to process that. So I
No, I
like the
think you're
community
right.
aspect of it, but like just the other things are like, yeah, that could absolutely, you know.
Now, I think you're right, but I got to push you on that from this perspective, right?
Go ahead.
And you know this better than me because of your background, right? Let's see if you see where I'm going with this. When we have a lot of individuals, particularly maybe individuals with substance abuse background, right?
Right.
Which particularly have trauma histories, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush, but what I'm saying is what we find is when we are doing groups and all of those individuals are in the room together, right? Before we even come in the room, when they're sitting having a meal, when they're sitting in the day room, they talking about what?
Oh yeah, you're right.
What they talking about? Suicidal thoughts, trauma, all of the stuff that so they live in the trauma. They're not scared of it. Now I'm not minimizing it either. So you know what I'm saying. But a lot of times, again, the people are living the trauma. So they're not processing the way we wanted to process it, but they still talking about it. So that's why I'm not saying, again, I'm not really on one side or the other, because if we're talking about formally processing trauma, yeah, that should be done in a therapeutic way. But in those rooms, those ain't therapy rooms. They just chat rooms. You know what I mean? So if a person wants to chat about their trauma, whether they chat about it in the hospital day room or on the bus stop or in there, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but to me, it's just another way that they do it.
Yeah, they're gonna talk regardless, right? It's just this is just like a space or an opportunity for them to talk, So like,
and it might be a safe space for them.
Right. So that's why I like that community aspect of it. I'm like, okay, it is giving them an opportunity for them to talk with each other. The only thing I would just be like, well, if you're going to do that, I guess the responsibility of the app type of thing. Like, again, I don't know who runs it or what the qualifications are or what the goal is, but it's like thing like, all right, well, look, like you said, they're going to talk about it no matter what, whether they're on the bus, whether they're in the chat room or so on and so forth. It's just like, all right, well, I hope that at least the app, if you're going to do it, like provide a resource or something, right? Like on the app and say, hey, if this is happening, call this number, or this is a network that you can, so on and so forth, right? Because I just feel like it's, at least if you're going to give people that opportunity to platform, you know what I mean? Just looking at it from a responsibility thing, because like you said, any conversation can escalate and go anywhere, right? It's just like, all right, well, if this is going to be the mental health chat room type of situation, say, hey, like, conversations are going to get heated, right? Or conversations are going to escalate, or they're going to get, meaningful, or whatever word you want to use. So it's like, hey, for help, for this, for that, go here, right? That's my whole thing, because I don't even know, like they mentioned the moderator or something, but I'm like, it seems like you don't even need a moderator, because like you said, you don't need necessarily like someone like ourselves or an advocate or an influencer or whomever to like moderate that or to be there. Those people are going to have a conversation about trauma or about addiction or about whatever the situation is. So it's like, all right, well, if you're going to provide that space, my whole thing is just like, all right, well, at least provide a resource or anything for if it does bring up something for somebody, like at least they may have some type of direction.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that totally. I agree with that totally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I know I gotta check this out more. To see more about the Clubhouse thing. Like I get the idea of it. I guess just to be more kind of responsible. I guess since we are talking about a health thing.
You gonna start your own Clubhouse page?
Yeah, man. Why not?
I don't even know if it's called a page. I mean, that might. I don't know what it's called.
That's why I called it, like, it seems like a chat room or a whole bunch of TED Talks or things going on. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that's what they're gonna do. And
man, we just old, man. We just
old. Yeah, that's it. That's why I was just like, okay. I mean, the main thing, if it's getting information out there, all right, cool. Like, you know what I mean? If it's able to get information out there to help out with stigma and everything else, hey, okay, that's cool. That's my thing.
Nah, I could dig it.
All right, man. So I wanted to ask you, and I think this will be something we'll try to incorporate with each episode and such. What is, like, we just talked about mental health stigma a couple times throughout the episode. What's one mental health stigma or myth, right, that you have, like, you commonly hear? That kind of like,
Oh, all right. All right. I don't want to make it too heavy today. A common myth.
Yeah, common myth. Yeah, that you hear like commonly or it comes up.
I would say a common myth is either that therapy is either for rich people or for poor people.
Okay, speak more on
either one. Either because poor people gonna say it's for rich people, and some rich people gonna think it's for poor people. But it's for everybody. I mean, in terms of what I see, you know. It might get it in different places, you know,
Okay.
but that's the biggest myth.
Yeah, the one that comes up
What
for
about you?
me is the mental health, or you don't need therapy, you just got to take a pill, right? And
Okay,
so yeah. And so while I'm totally, not against medication at all. Like I feel like definitely
Mhm.
depending on the severity of your symptoms or whatever you're experiencing, absolutely. Like I feel like medication is a big help, especially to balance things out, reduce the symptoms of
Right.
absolutely. I just feel like at times and people kind of rely on the medication too extensively, or just focus just on the medication. And
Yeah.
I think that's maybe where folks sometimes get into trouble, because it's like they just feel like, oh, if I take this pill, like I'm good, right? Like I'm gonna be able, the anxiety will be down, so I'm straight. And my thing is always is like, well, yeah, that's it's gonna level you out. It's gonna take care of that chemical imbalance that's involved in whatever the issue is, but it's also not going to, unfortunately, it's not gonna help you cope with whatever's causing that issue, right? Whatever's triggering that response. So that's been my thing. Like I've always felt like a combination of both, depending on the severity, is a good way to go about it. But it's just more like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, from our aspect, it's like, okay, well, what if you don't have that? What I mean? If you have someone that has anxiety about getting on planes, right? Or they're anxious, a phobia, whatever you want to call it. So they're used to doing that to, so you know what I mean, get to their destination. What if you get to the airport and you don't have your pills? You don't have your meds on you. Are
Right.
you gonna miss? Are you gonna miss that flight? Right? Or are you? What do you do
Yeah.
then? So it's just like, all right, it's like, okay, I get a word. The society that we're in is instantaneous, right? We need that instant, fix the problem. Medication usually does that because it takes the edge off. You're able to get through. My thing is just like, all right, well, let's also get into the aspect of not, let's help you through that, right? Let's help you what's driving the situation, what's contributing to that depression or your anxiety, or any of
Right.
these other different things that are popping up. So then, in addition to one, hopefully you won't have to continue to take the pills, or maybe take as high a dosage, or we can get to the point where like you've been able to conquer and deal with whatever circumstances that have been contributing to it. So, but that's the one that always comes up. It's just like, I'm gonna just take this pill and I'm good.
I also think, just to kind of add on to that, is the problem is like misinformation, right? Like,
Mm.
and I mean misinformation. I mean like patients and service providers are misinformed, right? So it's like, when's the last time you heard them on a Cymbalta commercial say that you need to go to therapy after you take that pill? They're not gonna say that because they're too busy making $50 billion, right?
Right.
So they that's a $50 billion industry, and it doesn't, it includes making you go to Rite Aid and pick those pills up, not, telling you that, you know what, that's part of it. That's to kind of dull those sensations so that you can go to therapy and do the hard work. They telling you half the story. So
Yeah.
it's misinformation, you know what I mean? And then again, I'm not blaming the medical institution, because I'm not necessarily just blaming doctors, but it's a disconnect between medicine and mental health, right? And that's going to go all the way back to how the medical model and what's in the hospitals. But the bottom line is, even if we working in the same building, we working differently, you know. So we're not necessarily go both ways. We're not necessarily sending our patients for that medical eval, or communicating with the psychiatrist. And likewise, they're not necessarily telling their patients, after I write you the script, guess where I expect you to be, in therapy. It's
Mm-hmm.
not happening. So,
No.
people get the impression, that, they can just take the pill, you know. Um, so again, that's my humble opinion, but it's a lot that needs to be done on that end.
There's definitely a lot of factors involved that go into that, and you're right. Like I mean, them commercials, even when they're spitting all the side effects and all the different things, and all the other different things that can come up with it. Therapy is not one that comes up.
No.
They're not saying, hey, in addition to this, yeah, you should seek professional counseling or therapy or anything like that
No.
nature. not gonna do that. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, so that's just again, that's the way, it's a lot of factors that contribute to it. So yeah, but you're absolutely right on that. You know. All right, good brother. Listen, man, I think we discussed a lot, man. I appreciate you coming through. Before I let you go on anything, how are you? What's your self care gonna be looking like for the next day or so as you get through? Like you said, we rolling through the end of the weekend, man. What you gonna do for yourself, bro?
I mean, listen, man, I'm good for the day. I already worked out. I did a little yoga, did a little
Okay.
reading. Good. I'm good for the day. I try to get in, physically, spiritually, and some type of emotional, self care every day. You know,
Okay. Cool. Cool.
what's
Yeah, I'm
yours
gonna
looking like?
do some mindfulness, do a mindfulness meditation, maybe about a probably about a 10-minute one. And like I told you, I'm a big big TV sports person, so I'm gonna check out I've been watching just that show that's on Showtime, Your Honor, with the
Okay.
yeah, with the dude from Brian Cranston's name, or Brian something. It's the guy from who did Breaking Bad. And like
Okay.
the show is off the hook, man. Let me tell you, if you get a
All right.
chance to check it
Might,
out,
might have to check
yeah,
it out.
listen, yeah, the show is on so many different levels, man. Like, so, for me, it's always been like, if I can watch a show or a movie, and just be able to just kind of, relax and just kind of turn it off, because we're always thinking, right? That's the way our brains and our minds are always working. So for me, if I can get like a good hour or so and just watch a programming and just be entertained, that's good. I watched Judas and the Black Messiah yesterday.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to see that. I want to
that
see
thing
that.
is good.
Yeah.
Check it out, bro.
All
Check it
right.
out.
All right.
Yo,
I
they
want
did
to
it.
see that.
They did a great job of casting, man. Like everybody in that film did a phenomenal job. And
Okay.
just like we talked about, unfortunately, like it reflects on even what we're talking about with the mistrust, because of J. Edgar Hoover and the government, and how they had the way they were treating all our leaders. You know it definitely reflects, and this film couldn't be more important given the climate of today. And unfortunately, like, not much has changed. um but
Right.
but the movie, yeah, I highly recommend it, good brother. Yeah, because it's
All right.
good. So you get an opportunity to do that, and taking the little one back up to campus, man, tomorrow. That's that. Get her back up there and
All
get her
right.
situated. I'm be sad to see her
Be
go,
safe
but
with that.
yeah, man. But sad to see her go. But daddy's gotta have his time. You know what I mean? Hey.
Nah, I could dig it. I could dig it. I could dig it. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
mean. So yeah, man, that's it. Appreciate, you coming through. Appreciate everybody listening, and tuning in to our maiden voyage of the Psychologist podcast. Definitely feel free. I'll have all our information up there. Dr. J and I, we do trainings, we do seminars. So guys, if you please feel free to reach out to us about any type of speaking engagements also, because again, our goal here is to get as much information out to the public about mental health, about health overall, about any of these things and these stressors that we're dealing with, guys. We know it's a difficult time for all of us for so many different reasons. So, our services are out there. We're always willing to come out and speak with the community and train people, because we want people to be as well equipped to be facing against these stress, against the pandemic. So, our information will definitely be up after we tune off. Feel free to reach out to us if there are some topics that you would like us to talk about. We're open to that too, guys. So appreciate everybody listening and watching. Signing off. Appreciate everybody.